Welcome to the African Weekly Roundup, a weekly program every Sunday where I discuss the latest news and events across the African continent. I'm Sultan Mohammed, your host and producer here on HORUFADHI Media. We hope you find this program very informative. Please like, share, and for similar content, do subscribe to HORUFADHI TV, where you are currently watching this program and where you can find other exclusive programs regarding Somalia and the wider globe. And last but not least, do follow myself, Sultan Mohammed, Suleiman Hashi, Yasin Abdi, and the wider HORUFADHI Media team on our social media platforms that should appear on the screen any moment. Let's get straight into the headlines. And we kick off in North Africa and Egypt, where polling stations opened on Sunday for Egyptians to vote in a presidential election overshadowed by the war in neighboring Gaza, with little doubt that the incumbent Abdel Fattah al-Sisi will secure a third term. In a country gripped by the most severe financial crisis in recent history, for instance, inflation has hovered nearly 40% after the currency lost half its value and drove up the costs of imports. And therefore, economy is the crux of concern for the Egyptian electorate. Now, even before the current crisis, about 2/3 of the country's nearly 106 million people were living on or below the poverty line. Now, before polls open at 9 a.m., dozens of voters had already crowded in front of polling stations across the capital city. Voting began Sunday morning, continuing on until Tuesday between 9 a.m. and 9 p.m. local time each day, with official results expected to be announced on December 18th. Now, in front of Cairo polling stations, posters bore messages to get out and participate, while nationalistic songs ring across the city. Now, some 67 million people are eligible to vote, and all eyes will be on turnout after successive previous elections mustered very low participation figures. Now, despite Egypt's afflictions, a decade-long crackdown of dissent has eliminated any serious opposition to al-Sisi, the fifth president to emerge from the ranks of the military since 1952. Now, under his rule, Egypt has jailed thousands upon thousands of political prisoners, while a presidential pardon committee has freed around 1,000 people in a year. Rights groups say that 3 to 4 times that many were arrested over the same time period. Now, it was in June 2012 when the Muslim Brotherhood-affiliated Mohamed Morsi was sworn in as president of Egypt, having won the 2012 Egyptian presidential election on June 24th, and becoming the first Egyptian president to gain power solely through an election via popular vote. However, Morsi's presidency was short-lived, and slightly more than a year later, on July 2013, he was removed from office by then Egyptian Army Chief General Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, who led a coalition to remove the democratically elected president from power and suspend the constitution of Egypt, and eventually would run for election in 2014 and win with outstanding figures of around 90% or more. In recent months, however, much like others around the Arab world, Egyptian media has been monopolized by the conflict in Gaza. Little attention has been paid to the election, which is not a surprise, as Egyptian politics isn't exactly a free democratic system. Indeed, unsurprisingly, talk shows on Egypt, which have been accused of being closely allied to intelligence services and fervent supporters of al-Sisi, have sought to link the two issues in the incumbent's favor, according to some. Other 3 candidates are all relatively unknowns among the public. Farid Zahran, leader of the left-leaning Egyptian Social Democratic Party; Abdul Sanad Yamama from the Wafid, a century-old, relatively marginal party; and Hazam Umar from the Republicans' People's Party. Now, of the trio, Umar appeared to come out on top during a televised debate between the candidates. Now, Sisi didn't even attend and instead sent an MP in his place, which really demonstrates how al-Sisi perceives these elections. Now, 2 more prominent opposition figures had attempted to run, but were quickly sidelined by the government. Today, one is in prison and the other is awaiting trial to go prison. Now, the journalist and activist Khalid Daoud criticized what he said was a stifling atmosphere of suppressed liberties, total control of the media, and security services that prevent the opposition from operating on the streets. "We are not kidding ourselves," he said. "The vote will be neither credible nor fair," he wrote on a post on Facebook. However, he added he would vote for Zahran in order to, and I quote, "send a clear message to the regime that we want change, because after 10 years, the living conditions of Egyptians have deteriorated and we risk bankruptcy because of the policies of this administration," he added. Now, if we look back at elections since the coup, In both 2014 and 2018, Al-Sisi won landslide victories with over 96% of the vote, according to official results, which is clearly beyond questionable results. He later extended the presidential mandate from 4 to 6 years and amended the constitution to raise the limit on consecutive terms in office from 2 to 3. Now, given that context, turnout is likely to be a key indicator of public sentiment to these changes. At least, at the last election, it fell 6 points to 41.5%. Now, Sisi isn't without supporters, many of whom credit him with engineering a return to calm in the country after the chaos that followed the 2011 uprising and the overthrow of Hosni Mubarak. Now, since the start of his first term, the President Al-Sisi has promised to restore stability, including for the economy. From 2016 onwards, he's undertaken a host of economic reforms that saw the currency devalued and the number of civil servants slashed. Now, those reforms, coupled with the high-cost projects, including a multi-billion-dollar new capital, have led to surging prices, fueled public discontent, and undermined Sisi's support both at home and abroad. Now, under Sisi's economic stewardship, the national debt has tripled, with various mega projects often led by the military and have failed to deliver on their promised benefits. Now, over to West Africa and Nigeria, where the delivery of 1 million barrels of crude oil to Nigeria's new Dangote refinery signifies a crucial step towards the nation achieving fuel self-sufficiency. Now, long reliant on importing refined oil due to inability to refine domestically, this practice incurred additional costs on citizens. Now, the Dangote refinery, a $19 billion facility in Lagos, is expected to produce 650,000 barrels per day once fully operational. Now, while the commencement date remains unclear, the delivery of 5 million more barrels is anticipated to initiate fuel production. Now, Aliko Dangote, Africa's wealthiest individual and president of Dangote Group, aims to achieve full refinery capacity and meet 100% of Nigeria's refined product needs, with surplus for export. Nigeria, a major oil producer, has grappled with the fuel supply challenges exacerbated by foreign currency shortages and political debates over fuel prices. It was after he was sworn in June of this year that Bola Tinubu took his eyes off the teleprompter during his first address to say, "The fuel subsidy is gone," referring to the decades-long government subsidy that has kept down the prices of petroleum products. Now, President Tinubu's removal of the fuel subsidies resulted in a 400% price increase. Now, despite labor union pressures, Tinubu defends the decision, emphasizing long-term benefits. The subsidy removal purportedly saved $1.8 billion from June to September of this year, earmarked by the government for social development projects. Now, over to the Horn of Africa, where Ethiopia appeared to be on the brink of a debt default on Friday after talks with key holders of the African country's $1 billion international bond ended without agreement. Now, the combined cost of COVID-19 pandemic and the recently ended civil war in its northern Tigray region has left Ethiopia, long seen as one of Africa's most promising economies, struggling to pay its debts. Ethiopia's finance ministry said that acute external liquidity pressures meant that it told bondholders that it would not be able to pay $33 million bond interest payment due on December 11th, an event which would trigger a default. Now, a bondholder committee said it viewed the decision not to make the $33 million payment as both unnecessary and unfortunate, given what it said was very short notice to engage in talks, as well as presentation to the committee of the decision not to make the coupon payment as a fait comply. It added that it was open to constructive and proactive engagement with Ethiopian authorities. Now, the Ethiopian's finance ministry said Ethiopia would, and I quote, broaden the engagement with holders of its Eurobond and hold a call next week to set up possible proposal for the debt. It said that during talks with bondholders, it had outlined an initial reconstructing proposal, and then after a counteroffer from bondholders, a final proposal. This would involve pushing back the planned 2024 repayment date, cutting the coupon rate to 5.5% from 6.625%, as well as staggering more of the interim payments. It added, the $1 billion bond maturing in December 2024 was last bid around 6 cents on the dollar, with a 66% yield. Over to the Democratic Republic of Congo, and in the east of the country, nearly 7 million people face displacement amid renewed conflict with M23 rebels, marking a record high in a country plagued by prolonged violence. This alarming situation, revealed by the International Organization of Migration, or IOM, coincides with the upcoming presidential election where incumbent President Felix contends with around 20 opposition candidates. The displaced, grappling with challenges such as limited access to basic services and residing in rebel-held territories, find it difficult to participate in the election. In Goma, the provincial capital, tensions escalate as voting date approaches on December 20th. Displaced individuals express frustrations with the government's perceived neglect and failure to establish lasting peace. The camp-elect saw an elected member in a refugee camp in Goma, Mr. Innocent, residing in an informal site there, highlights dire conditions in these camps, including unsanitary facilities, rapid spread of illnesses, insufficient food, and even a lack of proper burials. Residents resort to begging in Goma or venturing to the nearby national park for firewood, facing risks such as the recent armed attack that resulted in fatalities, intensifying their desperation and hunger. And those are the top stories from the African continent on the program today. Please tune in next week to HORUFADHI TV for headlines across the African continent.